Welcome back to the Lonely Crowded Table podcast. This is episode 3, and I'm very excited to sit down this week and dive straight into getting some games started. Today, I'm talking about your starting quest, the thing that's going to pull your players into the story, how this is vital to drumming up interest, and establishing the essence of the game you want to play. So, I'm going to give a couple examples of starter quests, some important ideas to keep in mind, and the potential structure. First, we can go over what makes a good starting quest. Having a concise purpose to the starting quest, keeping it simple, and drumming up player interest are just some points to highlight, but are certainly enough checkboxes to hit to have a strong beginning. The starting quest is supposed to be the introduction to the world you are building or playing in, so a lot of exposition here isn't just fine, it's recommended. Take some time to describe the world, nothing too particular like the exact interactions between individuals or trade routes or other minute details. So, as an example, you see the towering ash trees lining the hills that surround the small town of Pomoria, a small mercantile town with streets littered with hardy tradesmen and lively citizens. Its cobblestone streets and timber homes create a medieval setting, and the homes decorated with fashionable plant life to ward off the superstitions that reside in the surrounding woods give a delightful, fresh, earthy scent in the air. The clock tower can be seen past the rolling hills surrounding the town and rattles the lively market square below every hour. This is a rather simple dive into an explanation that creates a poignant image enough to start generating the atmosphere and the setting for your players and maybe even yourself. Now, for creating the quest itself. Simplicity is huge in this first quest, as making it straightforward will make it easier for players to get comfortable with the game and the game mechanics, their characters, and the story without worrying about an overly intricate challenge they aren't even sure how to begin addressing. Some simple starting points could be a townsperson asks them to check the weird noise in their basement, or the blacksmith needs a gem from the mines that he wasn't aware had a were-rat infestation. The point is to create something to get the players to touch base with different mechanics, such as interacting with the NPCs, or even finally rolling dice for charisma checks if they wish to barter for a higher payout. The eventual combat rules when you stop the thieves who are robbing a tavern, or the Batu who keep attacking travelers on the road in and out of town. Regardless of the quest and what you choose to make, keeping it simple is key in allowing aspects to flourish here at the beginning. The starting quest is also perfect as a world-building opportunity. Introducing key NPCs and locations and factions should lead into the larger story at hand. They should meet with someone who they're going to have recurring interactions with. Maybe it's someone connected to their characters and their backstories you want to build upon, which is another key factor to focus on during this first quest. Create interest by connecting it to your players' backstories, i.e. connecting it to a family member or a longtime friend or even an ongoing rival. However you choose, the idea is to flesh out the world to make it more lived in, to make it almost tangible. So, having moments of exposition, having a personal connection to the first quest, and having it be simple enough that you aren't overwhelming them with the combination of these three things, these make a good starting quest. Now, let's get into creating it. Past all the tips and tricks to keep in mind, I'm going to go over some examples of my own and elaborate, and the same for some textbook examples I think could start a campaign rather easily. A classic low-level starting adventure, which I already vaguely mentioned, is addressing a shopkeep's simple problem, something unruly has found its way into a storeroom or warehouse. There are plenty of low-level creatures you could introduce to give your players a real Dungeons & Dragons experience, but I've been scanning through the Tomb of Beasts 1 again, published by Kobold Press, so the example creature I'm going to use here is the Doppelrat. The Doppelrat is a fun twist on a seemingly harmless creature, something no one would really fear or give second thought to upon first glance, but after just a few dice rolls it becomes something much more. Under stress, Doppelrats quadruple, creating clones of itself by the fours, yet never exceeding 20. If someone is bitten by one, they make a constitution save, and if they fail, they've contracted the disease that makes this hell. During your player's long rest, a clone of this rat grows on some point of the carrier's body in a process that leaves them incapacitated past the point of speech, and after an hour, this clone that has been generating sloughs off and is a clone of the Doppelrat. They can repeat the Constitution save each night, and the diseases fall off after 2 consecutive saves. This creates an ongoing clone rat problem that really kicks the game into gear and should almost immediately create some interest and concern for their characters. Now for another example. Let's say you're bold enough or you're more experienced and you're starting a higher level campaign. An interesting start point, I think, could be the Baba Yaga's Horsemen in the Tomb of Beasts 1, which provide 3 different quest ideas, all of which I think are fun and rather straightforward. And they open up the gameplay and add some interest almost immediately. The Red Sun, one of her horsemen, begins burning down the town the players reside in. When questioned or interrupted, he provides a scroll from the Baba Yaga herself ordering the town's destruction. You could go based on the Black Knight, who holds a similar scroll with a different task. An elvish player must provide a pint of blood. If accepted, there is no further conflict. If declined, a young human boy's body is found nearby the player's nightly quarters, completely drained of his blood. The third horseman, Bright Day, leads a parade of odd creatures ranging from shadows, fae, undead, demons, and devils. The fae say they are going to pay respect to the River King for the Baba Yaga. If the party chooses to follow, they cannot separate from this group until sunset, even if their presence is unwelcome. Building off of these examples, let's take some time to discuss structuring the quest itself. First, determining the hook, then the goal, or defining the success itself, and then the challenges. 3 real simple points to mark to craft said quest. So, let's build out using my first example of the Doppel Rat. First, you start with the hook. You need to introduce a simple and inciting problem. So in this case, the shopkeep could be standing outside of his shop, obviously in distress, itching a spot on his hand. The shopkeep is a longtime family friend of one of the players, so they are inclined to ask what's wrong. And if they're not, seeing somebody in distress should call attention anyways. Seeing him itch his hand should create some mild mystery and potentially build curiosity. The hook. Then he asks for help, telling them there's rats in the basement, but every time he kills them, they keep coming back. So since there's probably a few players, certainly more than one, because there's only one shopkeep, he could say that their larger numbers should prove helpful, and removing them or killing the rats should suffice. This clearly defines the goal. Should they accept or be hesitant to accept, he can express the reward, either items from his shop, some gold or some health potions, or even a favor depending on how you choose to use him later, or even combining some of these. Stating the reward is important as it's the real inciting factor to push the players to act. Then comes the challenge itself, crafting the room they're going to fight or encounter the rats in, coming up with more than one solution, like capturing the rats and finding a way to remove them, or just killing them, which is going to be everybody's first thought, or something a little more outside the box like freezing the rats just to stop the duplication or the spread. Having these multiple solutions to a problem is also good practice for future conflicts, generally more realistic and allows your players to think more freely, as usually true to life there's more than one answer to a problem. Having these different avenues gives players a different way and multiple ways to explore the different mechanics in the game. Maybe the druid can speak with the animals and can persuade the rats to leave, or they just commit to fighting them and the player ends up contracting the Doppler disease, which is kind of what you're hoping for. Creating the challenge and being open-minded is the third piece of the puzzle for crafting said quest. Having the Doppler disease is just one of the other main parts for this other very important aspect of making the first quest, making it memorable. Your players are not going to forget the first night where 1, 2, or all of them just generate a rat at a point on their body as they sit paralyzed watching it happen. I can assume this because I certainly know that I would not forget. Having the shopkeep, the longtime family friend or the overly shady and reserved individual who maybe doesn't even tell the players what's down there, forcing it into a mystery. Having standoutish elements with the flavor or descriptions of what's happening is what's going to make these memorable down the line. The last part of making it memorable is to round out the solid starting quest with a valuable reward. Sure, a few healing potions are nice, or even a new sword for your combat-heavy players, but what if it had something he had to get rid of and he didn't say why? Maybe the shopkeep tries to pawn off a cursed or stolen item that will eventually build into a new quest line. This is a simple trick to keep the story going and can be a direct line into the larger story at hand, but however you go about it, pulling the thread at the end of this quest to connect it to another makes it interesting, adds the depth we need, and with everything put together, should make it rather memorable. Hopefully, using this paired with the last couple episodes, you have some general ideas to slam together some monsters and concepts to create your first playable session, and that, I hope, makes this insightful for you. Going forward now, I'm going to try to slow down generally and even do more and go more into specifics to begin making your world itself something special. Next episode will be about building world lore. That way we can take some time with these simple ideas to get your game going as soon as possible and turn that into a thrilling, enthralling, and appealing game. Thank you for sitting through my rather consistent audio quality difficulties and me trying to find my footing as to make this more listenable and accessible. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, don't forget to follow and like and share with a friend you might try to pawn off the responsibility of being a good DM. Good luck to you at your tables, and may favor find your dice. Thank you.